Anyway, so let me share my screen also. So mainly we will discuss Bernoulli's theorem, and along with that we will also discuss different flow measuring instruments. And these flow measuring instruments mainly orifice meter, venturimeter, and rotameter, right? And the basic principle for those flow measuring instruments are based on Bernoulli's theorem. Okay. Now you all studied this Bernoulli's theorem in fluid mechanics, right? Now, physically, what do you mean by Bernoulli's theorem? Can anyone tell? Ashutosh?
What, sir?
What do you physically mean based on the expression of Bernoulli's equation? What it talks about?
So it talks about all the forces that are involved in a flow, like be the pressure forces or be the external gravitational forces, all of them accounting them together with pressure forces to make the entire thing constitute.
So then what is the difference? Anyone, I mean, it's not only Ashutosh, I will also
It's an
encourage
energy
all.
conservation law for fluids.
Perfect. So it's essentially, who is, it's Hemant.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's mechanical energy balance, right? So the conventional Bernoulli's equation, which we understand, it's basically based on the fluid which has no viscosity. So that means it's inviscid flow, right? In that case, we essentially derive the simplest form of energy balance equation, that is known as Bernoulli's equation. And if we want to improve, or if you want to apply that equation for real world situations, we need to correct all those energy terms so that we can have a generic expression. Like for velocity component, we also need to the energy which is coming from the velocity, this kinetic component. For that case, we need to apply this correction factor. It's called kinetic energy correction factor. So all those correction factors comes into play, right? But those things you will not encounter in this lab course. But anyway, so this Bernoulli equation you can derive by many different ways. One way is based on Newton's second law, right? So, and also combining with Newton's law of viscosity. Also from Reynolds transport theorem, I guess I taught you that class, right? This CLL301. So in that course, I also mentioned this book in White as well as in Moonshine. In probably in White, it's chapter 4 in the 7th edition. I forgot the Moonshine chapter. So there you can also go through again to understand more about this Bernoulli's principle if you forgot. So basically, you start with momentum balance equation, or the equation of motion, which is traditionally known as. And this momentum balance equation is derived based on the assumption that there are two momentum components that is coming in. Hello, anyone? Any question from anyone? Okay, no. So anyway, so this, I mean, when we, if you consider a control volume, so it's a infinitesimally small cubical shape, the general representation of the control volume, right? So there we can, by balancing all the forces acting on the control volume, we can derive. And essentially, there are two types of forces. Those are related to the momentum of the fluid flow, and the forces are body force and the surface forces, right? And those surface forces can be two types. I mean, if you just go through all the lecture notes I have given to you, there you have you can clearly see that those different force terms are there. And if you split all those force components, then you can easily sum of all those force components, right? And from that, you can get the general equation for momentum balance or the equation of motion. Now, for a specific case, for constant velocity or constant viscosity, you will get Navier-Stokes equation, right? From the Navier, by the way, what are the different components present in the Navier-Stokes equations? Can anyone tell? I mean, if you for any one directional flow, like for X component flow, you get this rho into du dt plus u into du dx, those terms, right? So we can also categorize of individual terms into different names, right? So what are the names? Can anyone tell? Hemant? Anyone?
Sir, the first is one is there is a delta B term that is due to the
So one is
external
the
pressure.
yes. So the pressure force is there. So that's called the pressure gradient, which is also compressive in nature. There are other terms, right? You get from Newton's law of viscosity. You can also get the viscous term, right? So what are the
Yes,
other
sir.
terms? There is another term. It's
Sir,
body
is rho
force.
g, rho g.
Yes, rho g is the body force term, right? And from the velocity component, which is the bulk flow of the fluid, from there you get the convective terms, right? So these are the, and also for unsteady flow, you get the temporal term, this del u del t, right? So those terms are there. And if you consider for inviscid flow, in inviscid flow, which term will be neglected? Anyone? Delta.
Viscosity term that be turned to zero because inviscid flow is there, no viscosity.
Sorry.
So you're saying that it's the inviscid flow, right? So viscosity
Yes.
would go to zero.
So which term will be eliminated from the general expression of Navier-Stokes equation?
The end one that L delta out.
The entire viscous term, right?
Yeah.
So the entire viscous component will be eliminated. Then you will reduce this equation, which is known as Euler's equation, right? So from that Euler's equation, you can also, for further simplification, you can also get the Bernoulli's equation, right? So in the Bernoulli's equation, you get the pressure term, which is the pressure gradient in fluid flow in between two different points also, or at a particular small control volume of length dx. There also you get this the pressure gradient term, also the velocity component, right? This for one single for one directional flow you get del u del x term, right? And also you get this body force terms rho g. And if you simplify that equations, you get the generic expression of Bernoulli's equation. So those things are already mentioned in your manual. You get the general expression of this Bernoulli's equation, right? Now this, what it tells that if there are no other losses in a fluid flow which is inviscid and also it's in at steady state, then the energy between two different points inside the fluid flow will be equal, or at a particular point it will be a constant value, right? So in that, by the way, did anyone watch those experimental videos? Any experimental video? First one is the Bernoulli. All those videos are uploaded already, right, in Moodle. So did anyone watch those videos?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
so you have any questions related to those experimental videos, or any doubt? No. So in the experimental video, you can see that. Let me just open the no the manual. So you have this kind of setup, right, where you kept this Bernoulli setup. That setup is made of polymethyl methacrylate, one polymer, that is also known as plexiglass or perspex. There are many names of this material. So here you have a converging section and a diverging section. So you provide a constriction in your channel flow, right? In that channel flow, you just, so once you start flowing the fluid through the entire circuit of the pipe flow, at the at one point you just measure the certain amount of fluid that is releasing from this pipeline, and from that measurement you can calculate the average volumetric flow rate. From that flow rate you can calculate the velocity, right? And here in this experiment you don't have any elevation, so you can neglect that part, this the potential energy part. So you just need to work with only this equation, the energy at any given point. So the energy due to the pressure component and the velocity component. The velocity you will get from the volumetric flow rate. The volumetric flow rate you will measure in the experiment. Essentially, you are not doing the experiments, but those data, I guess, will be provided to you. And from the height, so the in the Bernoulli setup, there are different columns, right? These piezometric tubes. So in that tube, the liquid, there will be a different height of liquid. So that will be due to the pressure inside this Bernoulli setup. And from that height, you can calculate the pressure, the energy due to the pressure, right? So that you need to sum up. So the pressure due to the energy due to the volumetric, the flow, and the energy due to the pressure. So these are the two components you need to sum up. And at each point, so there are 7 points in the setup. So at each point, you will get the 7 different heights of different tubes. Then you just calculate the 7 different energies. And from that energies, you can see whether along the flow direction, the energy is changing or not. If it is changing, why it is changing, you need to explain that in the report also. And also you need to quantify the error for those measurements and what are the possible reasons of different errors you get, okay, for this Bernoulli's set of experiment. And anything else? No. So these are the things you just need to report. And also probably you need to show, or you need to provide the derivation of the Bernoulli equation based on the pressure argument. Okay. Any questions for up to this for Bernoulli's experiment? So in the measurement for the experiment, you will measure the volumetric flow rate of the fluid coming out from the setup, and at a steady state, what is the height of different piezometric columns. From the height, you get one energy component term. From the volumetric flow rate, you can calculate another energy component term. Summing that up, that will give you the energy component for a particular point. So those points are connected with those piezometric tubes, right? And you will see once you will have the data that, so I mean, if you move forward to the flow direction, that you will see that due to this constriction or converging nozzle, so the flow velocity will gradually increase and the pressure will gradually decrease. So that thing you will notice, and that's quite natural, right? If you try to, say for example, water the plants in the gardens with a tube, and you can clearly see if you just press the edge of the tube, just by pressing you can reduce the cross-sectional area. You can see the water will come out with a very high speed, right? So the same thing you will also notice from that experiment. So you need to find out, you need to also provide the plot of those pressure drop as well as the velocity at different points. Okay, so that's the overall understanding of the Bernoulli set of experiments. Okay, so any questions till now? Anyone? No?
Sir, are you explaining via some PDF that is visible? Because I'm not able to see it. We're just able to see the screen that you have.
Yes, yes. So this is the PDF.
Yeah.
So that's the manual which you already have, right?
Right, sir.
So even in the experimental video, it is very nicely mentioned what are the components you need for this setup. By the way, did anyone read those manuals? There is a term not term, there is a sentence here. If you read and try to understand why, I will let you know later. So here in the experimental setup or the procedure, I guess it is mentioned, ensure that the overflow still occurs. Point number 9. If not, partially close the bypass valve. So there will be overflow of this. So I mean, if I give you the overall explanation of this experimental setup, so there is a open tank. Okay, this open tank is filled with water. This tank is connected with a pressure pump, which is lifting water from this pump to the overhead tank. This overhead tank is connected with the main flow device, where you have this Bernoulli setup along with this piezometric tube. By controlling the valve, you can control the flow inside this tube. Okay, now here you will measure with a stopwatch how much volume of water is releasing at steady state when everything is on. Okay, and also you need to measure the time using a stopwatch, that at certain interval for 10 seconds or 15 seconds you accumulate certain amount of fluid. Okay, now in that entire experimental time duration, you always need to ensure point number 9. Just think why you need to have an overflow from this tank to this tank. Just try to think about that. Okay, if no other questions, then we will move to our next set of experiments, that is the flow measuring experiments. Any questions for Bernoulli set of experiments? No. So for Bernoulli's experiment, you need one set of data sets. For one flow rate, you can get the energy, and if you measure or if you quantify the volumetric flow rate at different time steps, then you can get the another set of energy data. Okay, for every volumetric flow rate, you get one set of energy data. Then you can compare with time if there are any changes for a particular point of energy, particular point in terms of energy or not. Okay, but you can write it with one set of energy data sets also. I guess in the last year report, they have only provided only one set of data sets. That's also fine. From that, you can get the general understanding of the energy equation, as well as the variation of velocity and the pressure drop if you proceed across the channel, along the channel, along the pipe flow. So if there is no question related to this Bernoulli setup, so we will move to our second set of experiments. That is this flow measuring instruments. So there are 3 popularly used flow meters. So all are known as flow meters. So you can measure either velocity or volumetric flow rate using this flow measuring instrument. So one is Venturi meter, another is orifice meter, and the rotameter, right? So this is the setup or the schematic of Venturi meter, right? Now I will also give you one question to think why. Okay, so let me explain this Venturi meter. I guess you also studied this Venturi meter in fluid mechanics class. So this in the Venturi meter, you have a Venturi meter that will be connected in the main pipe flow. I guess you already watched the video for this experiment also. You will see all those instruments are combined in a one set of experimental setup, but you can also have individual setups also. No issues for that. But anyway, the Venturi meter works based on the Bernoulli's principle that if you have any constriction, you will reduce the pressure and you will increase the velocity if the pressure drop is constant along the entire pipe flow. Now here, this cross section will be similar as the original pipe cross section. Then it will gradually reduce and it will have a converging cone-like structure. Then you will have a throat section which will have a constant cross section, and then you will have another diverging cone that will be connected, and the end of the diverging cone will be connected with the main pipeline. Okay, now from the schematic, you can clearly see that there are three major sections, but between at this point and at this point, if you just draw your attention, that you will see at the upstream. So the fluid from where it is coming called upstream for a target compared to a target region. So for our throat area, this is upstream and this is downstream. And if you carefully notice that the length of the converging section before the throat is less than the length of the diverging section. Why? I mean, why they are not equal? So if you know the answer, you can tell. Otherwise, you can think. I will let you know later. Do you know anyone or anyone any random guess?
About?
So why the converging section and the diverging section does not have the same length? Why it is different in the conventional venturimeter? And also this diverging section needs to have a certain certain angle. I mean, angle meaning the this section. So this angle. So the angle of this line compared to this horizontal line, it should be between 5 to 15 degree. That's the optimum range people have experimentally observed. So it, I mean, if you can make it very large, but then you will also cost certain energy if you just increase. So that's why there are certain there is a specific reason that this is large with a certain average contact angle of the diverging section compared to this converging section. So there is a scientific reason behind that. So anyway, now what you need to do in the experiment, what is done, at a different flow rate, you measure the pressure drop in the manometer. Right. So if you change the flow rate, it will change. You will get different pressure drop in the channel in this venturimeter cross section. At the same time, similarly, like Bernoulli's setup experiment, you also measured the volumetric flow rate for these two. And from those two data, you can derive all the other set of data which you need to provide in your report. Those are mentioned at the bottom of your manual. So all those so these are the data table you need to collect. So this one you get from the manometer, and this is the data you need to calculate the theoretical discharge based on this. So in this equation, everything is known apart from this capital H term that you can get from here, and also from the measurement of the volume, the height of the liquid column in the collection tube, you can get the actual discharge of the fluid. So from these two parameters, you can calculate all the values and also the coefficient of discharge that is also the one objective of this experiment for venturimeter, orifice meter, and the rotometer. Okay, so that's the thing you do. The same thing you also do for venturimeter, and the reason for the development of venturimeter is that, sorry, the orifice meter is that the venturimeter is very specific for a very specific pipe flow. So you cannot, I mean, if you design a venturimeter for a certain pipe, that venturimeter cannot be used for a different cross section, different pipe with different cross section. So that has a limitation. And also the venturimeter has a limitation of measuring a maximum velocity, because you due to the constriction, we are restricting the maximum flow inside this throat area. So due to those limitations, this orifice meter is developed just to overcome. So it has certain flexibilities, though all those instruments has certain limitations, also certain advantages, but it has less problem compared to the venturimeter. Okay, so in the venturimeter, what is there? you have a orifice. Orifice is a metallic plate, and if you have a circular tube, it will have a circular metallic plate, which will have a concentric hole at the middle. So if you see the so this is the side view of the orifice. Otherwise, it will be a circle. And if you have a, or if you just imagine a donut, so there will be a donut kind of structure here that is embedded. So this is one pipe, the similar pipe, but is also here. So there are two different pipes. Between those two pipes, there is a flange. In that flange, the orifice is embedded, and you can tune or you can change the orifice pretty easily by changing the plates. Okay, so by doing that, you can easily control the opening area between inside the orifice. By changing this orifice area, you can change the flow. So you can work with a range of volumetric flow rate. Okay, so but the pressure drop in this orifice meter is much larger or much higher than the venturi meter. So in the venturi meter, almost 90% of the pressure drop due to the venturi section is recovered. Here it is very difficult. So the reason is when you have a constriction, the flow will be reduced, right? So you will have, so in the venturi in the orifice meter, it will create a vena contracta. Vena contracta is the minimum cross section of the flowing fluid after the orifice. So in the downstream. So that's the vena contracta, and you can see there is a in the sketch. You can see there is an opening area. Okay, so there will be a wake formation, and due to this wake formation, it will have enormous pressure drop inside this orifice meter. That is also one of the drawback in the orifice meter. But anyway, so those instruments are rigorously used in industry. Also for the gas flow, also these instruments are used for measuring the volumetric flow rate. And also same like venturi meter, you measure the volumetric flow rate and the height difference in the manometer. So basically the reading from the manometer, and then you just derive all those parameters which are mentioned here. Okay, so the coefficient of the discharge, those things, and for so that's the targeted parameter you need to calculate. For this calculation, you need to do other calculations also, and from those readings you can get those calculation. Okay, so that's all for venturi meter. Now there is another flow measuring instrument is there, that's called rotameter, and rotameter is also very widely used. And the major advantage of this rotameter is that you will have almost no pressure drop due to this rotameter. So this is one type of float that is present in the rotameter, though it is called float, but this equipment of this part is not floating in the fluid. It's basically fully immersed. But due to the higher flow rate from the bottom, it can float inside this this rotameter. So that's why usually people call it a float. Okay, so you can have float of different design. Okay, for small flow rate, usually people use a spherical ball. Otherwise, for different fluid and different flow rate, you get this kind of design. Also, many other designs also you can get in the market. Okay, so here also, so if you I don't know if the overall setup is given or not. So yeah, overall setup is also here. So just if I briefly tell you about the overall experiment, which you can watch in the video. So all these flow measuring instruments are connected in the pipe circuit or pipe network. There is also only one reservoir. From that reservoir, you just pump the fluid or water through this entire circuit, and there you will have a rotameter. And in the experimental setup, you can see there are two venturi meters. They are sitting parallel to each other. And when you will measure the flow rate, or you will collect the data for venturi meter, you will close the orifice meter. Okay, then you will get the flow only for venturi meter, and for orifice meter, you will also close the venturi meter. But for rotameter, one of these needs to be all those instructions are given in the manuals. So then And also this orifice meter and venturimeter, they're connected with two different manometer. So during the flow through the venturimeter, you will get the reading in a different manometer than the manometer you get the reading for orifice meter. Okay, and those and for the calibration of the rotameter, you will get the reading from the flotation or the movement of this rotameter. So at steady flow, it will have a certain fixed position. From that, it will, so there is a scale at this at the surface of this container. From that scale, you can get the height. Okay. Now from those all those quantified parameter, you can calculate all those values which you need to calculate, and it's a very simple experiment, and it will not very it will not take lots of time to write and do all those calculations apart from this Bernoulli's equation, because you also need to derive this Bernoulli's equation from Newton's second law. Okay, so that's all for this venturimeter. Okay, so and also that's all for both the experiments, this Bernoulli's experiment and as well as venturi orifice meter and rotameter. Any questions for till now? Anyone? Ashutosh, Hemant, anyone?
No, sir. Clear till now.
So
Sir, why do we use bypass generally for controlling the flow rate?
what do you mean by bypass? Which bypass? This one or
The bypass valve, yeah.
bypass valve? Okay. So if you have any uncontrolled flow inside this pipe network, just to avoid any accidents, you need to have a bypass flow. So if anything is blocked inside a pipe flow, it will, and you have a constant flow coming in, so it can generate an enormous pressure, right, inside the pipe circuit. And if there is a very weak point compared to the incoming pressure, that can create a leakage inside your pipe flow. So that's why to eliminate those kind of problems, always any pipe flow circuit or gas, particularly for gas flow, because you can have explosion also. So you need those bypass valve also. Okay, Hemant?
Yes, sir.
Any question from anyone? No questions? So I don't know if you will be given individual data sets, or is Mukesh here? Mukesh?
Yes, sir. Sir, I will provide data after half and hour.
Okay. So Mukesh will provide data sets for all individual groups. From that data set, I mean the data set meaning what I mentioned, that this for Bernoulli's experiment, the height at for 7 different these tubes, as well as this volumetric flow rate, those data Mukesh will circulate to all of you. Based on those data, and all the equations are nicely mentioned and written down there. You just need to calculate step by step all the values, and then just provide it in a tabulated form. Okay, and also provide the graphs wherever possible, the energy the energy at different points, and the velocity as well as the pressure. Then you can have the comparison, what is changing, or if at all it is changing, because for the derivation of Bernoulli's equation, the main assumption is there is no external losses due to friction or any other thing, whether it is fulfilling or not. If not, then why it is not fulfilling. Okay, so that's all from my side. And if you need any more, if you have any more questions later on, so you just write it to me or Mukesh. So we'll just clarify as soon as possible. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes, who is speaking?
Sir,
Vishruta. Yes, Vishruta. Yeah, please tell me.
So the submission, the report we are submitting, we have a Turnitin report that is being generated on that, and we are saying that the plagiarism is going up as high as 35%. So that is
Okay.
happening because the procedure and theory is same for everyone.
Okay.
So how much is allowed?
Okay, that's a good question. I guess the TAs who will review your report, they can clearly see the percentage of overlap between two reports based on which sections. Okay,
Right, sir.
and yeah, even if it is 100% for those sections, that is perfectly fine, I guess, because those are the general procedure and that will be same for most of the students. But for the main calculation part or main argument for error analysis or for any questions which you need to answer in that case, there I guess more than 10% will not be allowed in that sections. But still, I will consult with coordinator Professor Mohan, and based on that, you will be informed. Okay.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any more doubt or any more question? No? Then we will end the session. Okay. And wish you all the best for your report. Then now I will stop the recording.